Libra, how God shows you that you shouldn't give up on a person. Libra, you were about to give up. The decision was made. You had the argument, you had the exhaustion, you had all the logic on your side. And then something happened, something small, absurd, something that shouldn't have mattered, and it mattered more than anything. You don't need me to explain what that something was. You know, you've lived through this moment more than once, and every time you did, you silently wondered the same thing. Was that real? Or was I just looking for an excuse to stay? Here's what nobody talks about regarding Libra. The ability to sense when a connection still has life isn't emotional weakness. It's not disguised attachment. It's a spiritual perception so advanced that most people don't even have the vocabulary to describe it. But there is a huge difference between the Libra who stays with someone out of fear of losing them and the Libra who stays because the universe keeps repeatedly, in ways impossible to ignore, pointing in that direction. How does God speak to Libra about this? Not with thunder, not with obvious messages, with details, with synchronicities, with that sign that arrives at the wrong moment, which is, in fact, the exact right moment. By the end of this video, something within you will make sense in a way it never has before, because what you've always called indecision may have been, all along, your most accurate form of spiritual perception. The only question is, do you still know how to listen to what she's saying? What I want to explore today is not whether this choice was right or wrong. I want to explore something much deeper than that. Why does this pattern exist? Why does Libra specifically seem to receive these signals? And, the question no one asks aloud, what if these signals are real? Because there's a huge difference between a Libra who can't let go of someone for fear of being alone, and a Libra who can't let go of someone because something, somewhere outside of logic, keeps signaling that the connection hasn't ended. And confusing these two things is one of the most painful mistakes someone can make. Let me start at the beginning. Not the pretty beginning, the real beginning. Libra is the only sign of the zodiac represented by an object. Not an animal, not a human being, not a mythological figure. A scale. And people take this image and turn it into a joke about indecision, about wanting to please everyone, about not being able to take sides. But this interpretation is superficial. It's just the surface. Scales don't exist to show weakness. They exist to show precision. A precision balance. One of those old two-pan balances that pharmacists use to measure substances with millimeter accuracy doesn't wobble by accident. Every movement it makes is a response to the actual weight of things. It doesn't lie. It doesn't round off. It records what is, not what it appears to be. Libra does this to people. Unconsciously, relentlessly, all the time. She's weighing what's real beneath what seems to be. And that's why when she's about to give up on someone and senses that signal, she stops. Not because she's weak, but because the scales have shifted and she can't ignore it. The problem is that the world calls this behavior attachment, naivete, a lack of boundaries. And Libra, which already has a complicated relationship with its own perception, begins to doubt itself. It starts to ask if what it feels is real or if it's just the fear of losing. And that doubt, that specific doubt, is where everything gets complicated. Because here's the truth no one tells you. The language of the divine with Libra isn't made of grand revelations. It's made of details, of synchronicities, of patterns that repeat themselves in ways that statistics can't explain without taking a small step of faith. A song playing at the wrong moment. That person's name popping up in 3 different places on the same day. A dream too vivid to dismiss. A date that shouldn't have happened. A message that arrived just as you were typing your goodbye. Libra picks up on these signals before any other sign. Not because it's superstitious, but because its frequency is calibrated to the language of pattern, to that which cannot be explained, but can be felt. Venus, Its ruling planet lives on the border between the beautiful and the true, and sometimes the true presents itself first as something too beautiful to be an accident. But then why does Libra so often ignore these signs? Why, even with all this sensitivity, does she still manage to convince herself that she's making it up? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path that Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. I needed to understand why Libra, with all its capacity to sense what lies beyond the surface, still chooses doubt when the sign is clear. And this book was the most honest answer I found. He doesn't treat Libra as a sign of indecision. He treats Libra as a sign of advanced spiritual perception, which, without the right tools, ends up using that perception against itself. There's a huge difference between feeling and knowing what to do with what you feel. The book works precisely on this space, how to develop the ability to hear what the universe is saying, without confusing the true signal with the noise of fear or attachment. How to find real balance, not the performative harmony that Libra learns to display, but the firm ground of someone who truly knows when to stay and when to go. You are now in a very specific moment. You recognize something, perhaps a person, perhaps a pattern, perhaps the memory of a signal you received and ignored, and then wondered if you did the right thing. This discomfort you are feeling now is not noise. It is precisely the entry point to what this book has to offer. This kind of clarity doesn't appear when you are comfortable. It appears when you are here, in this exact place where you are right now. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, have you ever been about to give up on someone and received a sign that made you stop? What was that moment like? What did you do? The answer to why Libra ignores what they feel has a layer that is quite unsettling, because it's not simple cowardice, it's not simple insecurity, it's something more specific. Libra has learned through many experiences that when they trust their feelings too much, they get hurt. That when they stay because of a sign, the person on the other side sometimes doesn't reciprocate the weight that signs seem to have. And so she built a very elegant protection system. She learned to disguise her fear of getting hurt as spiritual discernment. She says, I need to protect my energy, when what she means is, I'm afraid it will hurt again. She says, it's past time to let go, when what she feels deep down is that it hasn't passed, that there's still something there. There is a pilot who, flying in seemingly good conditions, turns off the radar because he thinks he doesn't need it. But the radar was picking up something the naked eye couldn't see. The collision wasn't due to a lack of signal. It was due to a lack of trust in the signal. Libra does this far more often than she'd like to admit. And here's the most important point. How then to distinguish whether the impulse to leave someone is genuine wisdom or an elegant escape? How to know if the decision to give up comes from a place of spiritual clarity or from a place of emotional protection masquerading as clarity? Because that distinction, that specific distinction, changes everything. It changes what you do. It changes who you become. It changes which connections you carry through to the end and which ones you abandon halfway through, believing you're finished, but carrying the weight of a doubt you never answered. That weight, you know what I'm talking about. Libra carries the weight of the people it let go of before understanding the sign. And it carries the weight of the people it stayed with even without a sign. And it rarely knows for sure which category the person in front of it now falls into. There is a way to develop this clarity. Not absolute certainty, that doesn't exist, not for Libra, not for anyone, but real discernment. The ability to get in touch with your own center and know, without needing to convince anyone, whether what you feel for this person is paralyzing attachment or a purpose that has not yet been fulfilled. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose works precisely on this muscle in Libra, the muscle of distinguishing fear disguised as wisdom from true wisdom. It doesn't tell you to stay or to go. It teaches you to listen to the part of you that already knows the answer. And for Libra, who so often gets lost in the noise of external arguments, this tool is not a luxury. It's essential. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. Now, when the universe decides that a person should reappear in Libra's life, it rarely uses the front door. He uses the crack in the window, the noise in the hallway at 3 in the morning, the detail that shouldn't matter, but that Libra notices even before realizing they're noticing it. The most common form is also the most disturbing, reappearing at the exact moment when Libra has finally, truly decided to let go. Not days before, not weeks later, at the exact moment, when the decision had been made and peace was almost upon us. And Libra's first reaction is to try to explain rationally. It was a coincidence. She was looking for someone to talk to and reminded me. He always shows up when he realizes I'm leaving. All the explanations make sense, and none of them can completely silence that feeling. The one that sits in the pit of your stomach and has no name, but has weight. Think of a tide. It recedes. Sometimes it recedes so much that you think the sea will dry up. And then it comes back and returns to the shore exactly the object it took away. Not a different version, the same thing. And you might say it's the accident of the currents, that it's physics, that it has no meaning. But if you observe that tide enough times, you begin to realize that the pattern has an intelligence that is not random. Libra observes this tide within their relationships. They don't tell anyone because it sounds strange, but they observe. And they notice when a specific person's pattern of behavior is different from anyone else's. When that particular person has a way of appearing that doesn't seem accidental. And then comes the quietest and most important question. What happens when the person doesn't reappear? When the silence lingers and no sign comes? Is that also an answer? Does the universe also speak through what doesn't happen? Yes, and Libra, deep down, also knows how to read that silence. But that's the hardest sign to accept. Because not giving up on someone when they don't reappear requires a different kind of faith. It requires trusting not in the sign that came, but in the sign that is absent. This is the moment when Libra needs an inner anchor that goes beyond what anyone else can offer. What do you do with a question that only you can answer, with a sign that only you received, with a connection that only you can feel from within? The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose exists precisely for this moment when you are alone with your sign and your decision, with no one to validate it and no certainty to lean on. It offers an internal structure, a way to relate to your own spiritual perception so that it works for you, not against you. For Libra, who lives on the border between what they feel and what they can prove, this kind of anchor changes the quality of all the choices that follow. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. The time has come to talk about the paradox at the heart of all this. Libra has been taught for years that persistent feelings for someone are attachment, that not being able to let go is a lack of emotional maturity, that an evolved person lets go lightly, without resistance, without that uncomfortable feeling that something was left unfinished. And Libra, who naturally seeks to do the right thing, internalized this narrative. They began to judge themselves for the times they couldn't let go. They started to call what was perhaps something entirely different attachment. But there is a textural difference between attachment and purpose that once you learn to perceive it is never confused again. Attachment is heavy in a specific way. It carries anxiety. It needs constant confirmation. It intensifies when the person moves away and screams when the person disappears. Attachment craves the person's presence because their absence creates pain that you don't know where to put. Purpose has a completely different texture. It doesn't shout. It pulsates. It doesn't need confirmation because it's not looking to prove anything. It's simply acknowledging something that already exists. A connection that has purpose doesn't demand that the person be perfect, that they be available, that they measure up. It simply remains, like a root that continues to grow even when the surface is dry. There are two roots that look identical when viewed from above, but one is dead. The other is growing underground, silently, unannounced, without seeking attention. The only way to tell which is by putting your hand in the soil. Libra places her hand on the earth. She feels the difference before she can explain it, and that's what makes the question of should I give up or not so complex for her. Because the true answer isn't in the argument. It's in the touch. It's in what she feels when she stops thinking and starts to perceive. Is there something you still feel for that person? Not the drama, not the performative longing, not the habit, but a thread, a gentle presence whose origin you can't explain. If you close your eyes now and think about that person, what do you feel? Anxiety or recognition? There is no wrong answer to this question, but there is a true answer, and you know what it is. Libra was built, architecturally, astrologically, spiritually, to perceive the difference between what seems to be and what is. And when it learns to trust this, when it stops asking permission for what it already knows, it becomes something extraordinary. Someone who doesn't give up out of stubbornness, but who stays because of clarity, who doesn't leave out of fear, but who departs when the time is right. For those who are still learning to trust this perception, and Libra is always learning, there is a process. Not magical, not instantaneous, but real. The process of distinguishing attachment from purpose doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers. You peel back the first layer and find another. You go down further and find yet another. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose was structured for this process. For Libra, who knows the answer lies within, but doesn't yet know how to get there without getting lost along the way. It doesn't replace the experience of feeling. It offers the tools so that this feeling can be cleansed without the noise of fear, without the fog of attachment, without the judgment that Libra has carried for so long regarding its own sensitivity. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And then that moment arrives. The moment that few people can describe well, but that every Libra recognizes when they hear it. It's the moment when she stops arguing, not because she has run out of arguments, she always does, but because the arguments suddenly become hollow, because the logic is still there, structured, complete, and yet it can't hold up against what she's feeling. And Libra, for the first time in a long time, chooses what she feels. Not for sure, not without fear, but with a clarity unlike anything the mind can fabricate. And what happens after that is almost always surprising, not because the situation becomes easy, but because it becomes real. When Libra stops fighting the sign and starts walking towards it, something in the atmosphere changes. The things that needed to happen start to happen. The conversations that were blocked begin to flow. The people who needed to leave. The ones who needed to stay. A door that seemed locked sometimes doesn't need a key. It needs a change of direction. It opens by pulling, not pushing. And Libra was pushing, with all its might, with all its arguments, while the answer was simply to stop forcing and let the door move. Trusting the sign doesn't mean it will be easy. It means it will be true. And for Libra, who has carried the doubt for so long about whether what they feel deserves credence, The experience of realizing that yes, that the sign was real, that the perception was correct, that experience is priceless, not in a sentimental sense, in the sense that it reorganizes who you believe you are. When you discover that your spiritual senses are reliable, you begin to relate to yourself in a different way. You stop seeking validation for what you already know. You begin to walk with the confidence of someone who has been tested and gotten it right. Libra has this ability to feel what others don't see, to recognize the life within a connection when others have already declared it over. But this ability only works when Libra trusts itself. And trusting itself, without the guarantee of the outcome, without the certainty that the other person will reciprocate, requires a kind of courage that doesn't seem like courage from the outside. It seems like madness. It seems like naivete. It seems like everything the world has used to make Libra doubt itself. But it is courage. It is the rarest kind of courage. The courage not to give up when everything tells you to give up. Not out of stubbornness, not out of attachment, but because something inside you, silent and firm, tells you that the time has not yet come. There is a light that stays on even when the rest of the street goes dark, not out of spite, not out of carelessness, but because it knows something the other lights don't. It knows that someone still needs to find their way in this darkness. Libra is that light. When it trusts what it feels, when it stops asking permission to stay, when it learns to distinguish the signal from the noise and chooses, consciously, courageously, to honor what the universe is saying, not giving up on someone, when it comes from a place of true spiritual awareness, is not weakness. It never has been. It is one of the most advanced acts a human being can perform, recognizing that a connection still has life, even when external evidence calls for its end, and having the courage to give what is still breathing the time it needs. Libra was built for this, not to please everyone, not to avoid conflict, not to remain suspended between two worlds without ever choosing, but to sense with precision what others experience without noticing, to recognize the sacred within the ordinary, to know before any argument when a story has not yet been told to the end. If you are a Libra, what you carry is not a burden. It's a gift. It's a spiritual compass that, when you learn to use it, guides not only you, but everyone who has been lucky enough to cross your path at the right time. And if there's someone in your life right now, someone you are about to let go of, someone who keeps popping into your thoughts, someone the universe keeps pointing you toward in ways you can't explain, maybe it's worth stopping, just stopping and listening. Not the argument, the sign. You know how to listen to him better than you think.